Well, welcome everybody to Bodart Creek Cowboy Church. We're glad that you joined us on this Memorial Day weekend of 2021 as we stop and reflect the sacrifices that were made so that this flag can wave and fly. There are men and women who gave their lives for us, and we have vowed that we will never forget their sacrifice for us. There are monuments and memorials all across our land that honor those who have fallen. Here is the World War II Memorial in Washington, D.C. It honors those who died. Its Freedom Wall contains over 4,000 gold stars that represent over 405,000 people who gave their lives in that war for you and I to have freedom. Soldiers who had our backs, even though they didn't know who we were. The Vietnam Wall is in Washington, D.C. as well, and most days you can hear a pin drop there. As people look at the thousands upon thousands of names that are listed, men and women who didn't come home. Those that gave the ultimate sacrifice so that this flag on the town square could fly at half-mast in their honor, so that we can enjoy the freedoms that we have today. Those are national memorials, but in every little town there's little memorials. This one is in our community here. It is a marker in memory of those who gave their lives in various battles, various wars. As this marker list, it is in memory of those who gave their lives for their country. These are important names on this stone because these are the people who built this community. These are the people who sacrificed so that there could be a community. There's just a brief history of who they were, when they were born, and when they died, and where they were. I'm not from this community, but I brought my daughter here when she was small because I wanted her to know the price that had been paid, and I didn't want her to forget that people had given their lives so that the flag could fly on the town square. There's little memorials like this all across towns, all across the U.S., and town squares all over, and places that don't have a town square. There's a memorial to those who fought and died so that you and I could have freedom. In Arlington National Cemetery, there are little signs that say silence and respect. I'm going to be silent for a little while as we respect those who gave their lives for us. I want to be silent as we see the wind display the freedom that we enjoy. Let us never forget those who fought for our freedom. Let us never forget that our freedom comes by the grace of God, and that true freedom comes through His Son, Jesus Christ. I can remember one time when I was a small boy, we were over at some people's house, my family and I, my mom and dad and I, and we were at their house and we were visiting. See, people used to do that. People used to sit around a table and they visited, or they went to the living room and they sat in a chair and they visited. We don't do that anymore. Now we have this thing called social media, and everybody tries to put their little clip on there to make their life look like it's perfect. Nobody visits anymore. Well, that's a sermon for another day. We were there when I was a little boy, and we were sitting in their living room and we were visiting, or they were visiting, and I was looking at everything. And I noticed on a bookcase there was a picture, 8x10 picture of a soldier, and he had his uniform on. It was his official picture, I guess, if you will, and he was sitting on that bookshelf. I didn't know who he was. I knew these people, but I didn't know who that picture was of. And so I asked my dad, I said, who is that? And it's like the room got real heavy all of a sudden. And my dad said, well, that's their son, and called his name. And he paused for a minute. And then he said, he didn't come home. There were stares at the floor. There were folks staring out the window. There were people just sitting in their chairs, just kind of looking into nowhere. He didn't come home. It seems like I remember someone in the room saying something to the effect of, there were a lot of good boys that didn't come home. That's what this weekend is about. It's about the men and women who didn't come home. Memorial Day is about the ones who sacrificed their life. And I'm going to be honest with you, I don't think we do a very good job remembering. I don't think we memorialize them the way we should. And I know time passes, and I know battles of the past die away, and every generation's a little different. Those men and women gave their lives for us so that we could have what we have today. See, today is Memorial Day weekend. It's Memorial Day Sunday, and it's about the ones who were face down in the sand on a beach somewhere. It's about the ones who lost their life in an instant. They had dreams. You know, I think about the greatest generation, the World War II generation. Those are the men who impacted my world. I think about them. What was that young man's last thought as he laid in the sand on Omaha Beach? What was his last thought? They sacrificed for our freedom. And our freedom comes with a tremendous responsibility. And I think we need to do a better job of telling our kids, because history will repeat itself if we don't learn some lessons. I think about those people that gave their lives, and I think about everything they gave up. And I think about how we need to do a better job. This is not the America they fought for. This is not the America that they gave their life for. See, There's a little memorial in almost every little town. And there was a time in those little towns when the sidewalk went right by the church. People walked down that sidewalk on Sunday morning going to church. We don't do that anymore. We have people who show up at church because they think it's going to help them in some way, and it does, but they're not there for the right reason. God's given us a lot. We don't need to take that for granted. What's Memorial Day weekend about? Well, it's not about the Memorial Day sale where we get 75% off of more junk that we don't need. Let me read something to you from John 15. I'm going to start in verse 12. The words written in red, words of Jesus himself. He's talking about the vine and the branches. And he's talking about how you can't grow unless you're connected to the vine. The branches are taken off and they don't have any source. And so that's what he's talking about here, that we need to be connected. Verse 12 says, my command is this, love each other as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, that he laid down his life for his friends. That's what Memorial Day is about. It's about the men and women that laid down their lives. Young lives, for the most part. And every generation has a war that impacted them more than the others. And, you know, I have family members that gave their life in World War I, but I don't know much about World War I. The stories I heard were from the men who came back from World War II. The stories I heard was from the men who served in Korea. The stories I heard were from the men who came back from Vietnam. Sometimes their stories didn't make sense to me. I didn't understand them. Then I realized they didn't either. They fought. They fought for us and they laid down their lives for us. We ought to be able to teach our children a little bit more about what this is about. You see those little memorials in all those little towns. If you sit there at one very long and you watch, there's cars that just go zooming by. People drive by that little piece of granite. They never stop to read a name on it. They never stop to see who was lost at sea. They never stopped to see who was missing in action, who was a prisoner of war. They never read the names off of it. They just zoom by in their cars real fast, and they got their kids in the back seat, and they've got their phone in their hand and their earbuds in their ears, and we don't teach them. What we have is because somebody died for you. I wish that church house bell would ring loud. I wish people would come and serve God in a mighty, mighty way. This country is not finished unless we give up. I want to read another verse to you from 1 John chapter 3, verse 16. Now, this is 1 John 3:16, not John 3:16, but I think it's an interesting correlation. It says, this is how we know what love is. Jesus Christ laid down his life for us. We ought to lay down our lives for our brothers. Jesus Christ laid down his life for you, so that we could have life. You see, there's soldiers who didn't come home so that you could have a home. There's a soldier who didn't come home to be a husband because he gave you the opportunity to be a husband. There's a nurse somewhere that didn't become a mom because she fought for freedom so that you could become a mom. See, there's people who laid down their lives for you and every single thing that you've got. Every little thing that you hold dear to your heart, somebody gave their life for. And you and I live in a world that is cram-packed full of sin that is wanting to pull us under. And it says right here that Jesus Christ laid down his life for us. We ought to lay down our lives for our friends, is what it says. I think the real question is, have you laid down your life for Jesus? Have you laid your life down and put it aside and said, I'm going to serve Jesus Christ? Have you done that? We talked last week about the sinner's prayer a little bit, how some people think that's a waste of time. But all the sinner's prayer is confessing that we've made mistakes and that we realize our sin, that we realize that we can't get to God on our own, and that we've got to have Jesus to bridge that gap. That's all that is. Are you willing to do that? Right where you are, just say, Jesus, Lord, forgive me of the sins I've committed. I'm going to confess with my mouth that you are Jesus, Lord of all. I'm going to confess with my mouth that you are the Son of God, that you died on the cross for me. I'm going to confess with my mouth that I'm not going to take the freedom I have for granted, that I want true freedom that comes through you, Jesus. Freedom from all the sin that has riddled my life. Freedom from all the things I've struggled with. I want to stand before you in eternity one day, and today I give my life to you. I lay down my life, Lord, for you. Jesus, I follow you, and it's in your name I pray. Amen. I hope that you said that prayer. I think about all the little white crosses that are across foreign land. I have family buried on some of those white crosses. I think about Arlington Cemetery, where you can stand and you can look for rows and rows and rows as far as you can see. People that gave their life for you and me. And I think about all the living rooms that have got a triangle flag folded in a little glass case that's sitting on the mantle. It's folded there because someone gave their life. I hope I don't take that for granted. Because there's a lot of people sitting in living rooms that say, well, he didn't come home. I hope you said that prayer to follow Jesus, because I hope that one day when we gather in heaven, we don't sit around and call your name and someone say, they didn't come home. I want you to follow Jesus. I want you to be in heaven for eternity, because that's your real home. It's not here. We're just passing through here. Take the time to teach your kids the sacrifice that's been made. Take the time to teach them that the little old man that they see down there, the corner store or wherever he's at, fought for him. Some of his friends didn't come home. Take the time to share. Well, folks, as you gather with family this weekend, I just pray that you would take the time to share a little bit of your family history with your kids and your grandkids, even the younger generation that's gathered around that picnic table. Take the time to tell them about your family, who in your family served, who in your family maybe didn't come home, who in your family did come home. Be sure that they know those things. Freedom is something that's not free, and we've got to realize that. We need to share that to where our kids understand that we have to be responsible with that freedom. You know, on those little granite markers and all those little towns, there's all those names of all those men. Those were the men who built that town. Those were the young boys who left so that there could be a town. Those are the men and women who gave their life so that there could be a church in that little town and the bell would ring on Sunday morning, that you could worship God in a free country. Our kids need to know that. We need to tell them that Jesus Christ laid his life down and that he can't wait for them to lay their life aside and follow him. I pray that they know Jesus by the words you tell them. You can't just leave it up to them finding their way. You've got to share Jesus with them. And my prayer is that one day in that big picnic table in heaven, that your whole family's around that table because they all believe in Jesus. I hope you have a fantastic week ahead. I hope you enjoy the time with your family. And I just pray that wherever you're at, the grass is green and growing and the sun comes out. We'll see you next time.